All right, everybody, we're at 6:01 p.m. It looks like we are ready to rock and roll here, and so I will go ahead and call the September 16th City Council meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. Before we get started with the agenda, if you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. So let's see here. Agenda. Ms. Trimble, if we could go ahead and do the roll call, please.
Good evening. Anderson.
Present.
Becerra.
Present.
Campbell.
Here.
Carlino.
Present.
Farmer.
Present.
Jones.
Present.
Jordan. Present. Melson.
Present.
Nugent.
Present.
Savage.
Present.
Sherrill.
Present.
And Vasecka.
Present.
And everyone is in attendance this evening.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Trimble. Welcome, everyone. We do not have any approval of minutes. There are no minutes for consideration this evening. So we'll move on to the agenda item number 3, which is the committee schedule, announcing any changes to that schedule or committee memberships. Ms. Trimble, do we have any changes to the committee schedule?
No changes that I'm aware of.
Okay, great. So the committee schedule for the 18th of September is available on the City of Missoula website. So you can find that on the meetings calendar, and not that intense of a schedule this Wednesday. Pretty reasonable. Let's see. We'll now move on to agenda item number 4. It's special presentations and proclamations. It's an opportunity for me to also just speak a little bit about the upcoming meeting. Sometimes we have a lot of public hearings and we get ready for it where we anticipate a long set of agenda items. And this evening, we will have the opportunity to hear from 2 different neighborhoods and neighborhood updates, which will be great. I have a proclamation to share with folks. And then we have a public hearing this evening that is an informational item, and it is from our Community Planning, Development, and Innovation team. They'll be providing an end-of-year report for the federal funds that we administer to help build and preserve affordable homes in Missoula. Consent agenda and then public comment on items not on the agenda. So with that, I will go ahead and read the proclamation for Constitution Week. I have to call that up on my computer. All right. Whereas September 17th, 2024 marks the 237th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Andrea Davis, Mayor of the City of Missoula in the state of Montana, hereby recognize the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, and urge all citizens to study the Constitution and reflect on the privilege of being an American with all the rights and responsibilities which that privilege involves. Generally, asking anybody here if there's anybody that that submitted this proclamation, if you're wanting to come up and share anything this evening. All right. See if there's anybody from the Daughters of the American Revolution that were here or anything like that. Okay. Seeing nobody is here, then we will go ahead and move on. We do have 2 neighborhood council updates, and so we will start with the Rose Park neighborhood update. Come right up to the podium, and I will go ahead and turn the microphone on now, and please share your name with us, and we're excited you're here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There we go. I think, is that all right?
Yes, it is.
Good. I'm Audrey Hayes, and I'm a member of the leadership team. The Rose Park neighborhood met yesterday at our annual meeting. It was an open house format during the first hour, and we had representatives from various city entities, the Rose Society, the State of Montana Fish and Wildlife and Parks, who interacted with residents. City council members Gwen Jones and Dan Carlino were there, and they answered questions from the residents. We elected 1 new team member, and we have the potential to add another one at our next month's meeting. One initiative we've been working on is gathering ideas for the Slant Street Gateway, the plot of land that's there located on Plymouth Street and Mount Avenue. So during yesterday's meeting, we invited neighbors to join a subcommittee to help advance this project. Then earlier this year, the leadership team met with the urban forester, Ben Carson, to discuss ways to educate residents on caring for their boulevard trees. The Urban Forestry Department created a flyer on tree care, which the leadership team distributed to residents yesterday. Gwen and Dan discussed the urban forestry tree tagging operation that has begun to identify trees for remedial work or for removal and replacement. The leadership team wants to thank Gwen and Dan for coming. And as well, we'd like to thank the Baskin and Robbins store for coming and providing us with some great, delicious ice cream. So thank you for that. And are there any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Hayes? Did I get your last name right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Any questions or comments? All right. Yes, Ms. Jones.
I just want to say thanks for coming down, and I think the format of these updates are working really well, and it's a great way to connect with the neighborhoods. So I appreciate you coming down, and yeah, thanks for participating with the leadership team.
Sure. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Ms. Hayes, thank you so much for your service to the community and your neighborhood. Appreciate everything you're doing. All right. So our next neighborhood is the Riverfront neighborhood update. Whoever is here to present, come on up.
Hello, I'm Eva Dunn-Frobig. I am on the Riverfront Neighborhood Leadership Team, and I believe we had somebody from our neighborhood come and report just a couple months ago, I think back in July. So we have only met once or twice, and we haven't had an annual meeting, but at our recent leadership team meetings, we've been talking a lot about the new urban camping ordinance, and this is not a new issue for our neighborhood because we have had a lot of urban camping in our neighborhood over the past several years. We've had a lot of neighbors, residents of the neighborhood come and talk about their concerns. And so we've talked a lot about this over the past few years. And so one thing that we talked about was that this is not a new thing for us, but we know this is new for a lot of neighborhoods that are not used to having urban campers in their neighborhood. And so we want to continue talking. We want to be part of the solution. We don't want to just complain about it. So we also, that said, we don't have, I don't have anything to report that we have the solution right now, but we want to keep having discussions. And then also we heard from a neighbor that a meeting was scheduled about urban camping in Silver Park specifically, and we weren't engaged in that. And I guess the meeting was kind of canceled at the last minute because there was a storm coming. So the meeting never happened, but we do hope that if there are future meetings about urban camping in parks in our neighborhood, that we will be engaged. So I hope you'll keep that in mind because we want to be part of the solution. Also, we've started to dive into our neighborhood action plan. We want to create a plan for our neighborhood for the next couple years so we can kind of stay on track and know what our goals are. And so we've been taking feedback that we got from our spring general meeting and identifying the top concerns and issues in our neighborhood. And so we're most recently working on transportation safety. So that is what we're going to dive into at our next leadership team meeting. And that's about all I have to report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Froberg. Any questions or comments for Ms. Froberg? Yeah, thank you for being down here, and also thank you for your approach to wanting to continue open dialogue and continuing to put solutions out there together. We absolutely will make sure we're in touch as if there's any specific meetings that come forward in regards to, something specific like Silver Park or other items like that in your neighborhood. And but yeah, thank you again. Just want to appreciate and your service to the city of Missoula and your community, your neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later. All right, that wraps up our neighborhood updates. So we'll move on to our public hearings. State law and city council rules set guidelines for inviting community comment in a formal way on certain issues. Following a staff report on each item, the city council and the mayor invite community comment. City council holds a public hearing on the item. A member of council makes a motion and a vote is taken. The public hearing and vote take place on the same night unless there is a reason to hold the vote over to a later meeting date. So our one and only public hearing this evening is item 5.1, which is end of year report for the Community Development Block Grant and Home Program Year 2023. And I see, Kendra Lissam and Karen Gosvada are with us this evening to, no? Hi.
Sorry, they weren't able to be here, so I will be presenting. My name is Tracy Pondorf. I'm the Grants Program Manager in Community Development.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks for being here. We're looking forward to it.
Alrighty, let me just share my screen. I'll also mention we also have Montana James in the meeting online, and she is the Deputy Director of Community Development. Alrighty, share my screen here. All right, does that look okay?
Yes, it sure does.
Okay, thanks. All right, so we're here to present our end of year report for the funding we received from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. So we've got two streams of funding coming from HUD. There's CDBG, which stands for Community Development Block Grant, and we have the Home Investment Partnerships Program. And I will note the word home is in all caps, but it is not an acronym. And the city of Missoula receives a direct allocation from HUD every year, and every year we have an annual cycle of compliance to go with it. And this includes the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, and we call it the CAPER for short. So basically I'll be giving a recap of what was funded and the outcomes for the past year. You'll hear me talk about program year 2023. Our HUD program year runs July 1st to June 30th, and this past June was the end of program year 2023. And one more reminder, the dollar amounts in this presentation all represent federal funding. So in program year 2023, we were awarded almost $400,000 in home and a little over $550,000 in CDBG. Now, home funds can be used for homeowner rehab, home buyer assistance, rental development, and rental subsidy. In 2023, we funded one home project with the year's allocation, plus some program income we received from past projects. And CDBG can be used for a variety of different activities that include homeownership and rental acquisition, preservation, housing, education, and counseling, and public services. And this past year, we were able to fund 4 CDBG projects. So our program year 2023 home project was a rehabilitation project for the continued preservation of Homeward's Creekside Apartments. Home funds will go toward exterior rehabilitation as well as replacement of needed air conditioning units, water heaters, and additional interior repairs. The project is currently in progress and will ultimately benefit 161 households. And while funded in years past, a major accomplishment in program year 23 was the completion of the Trinity and Bellagio apartments, 2 large home projects that helped the development of 402 affordable housing rentals. So Bellagio's 200 rentals are located in Missoula's north side neighborhood at the end of Scott Street. The 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units currently house 294 adults and 305 children and teens. Rents are set for people earning 30% to 60% of the area median income. And for a family of 4, this means an income range of approximately $31,000 to $54,000 a year. And then Trinity's 202 rentals are divided among 2 locations and 3 rental communities and currently house 278 adults and 111 children and teens. And 65% of the residents make 50% or less of the area median income. And Trinity includes Maple Street Flats on Mullen Road, which has 100 workforce rental homes. Blue Heron, also on Mullen Road, has 30 permanent supportive housing homes and an adjacent supportive services center. And Westside Place on Cooley Street has 72 workforce homes that include 12 3-bedroom row houses with single-car garages. And moving on to CDBG, in program year 23, we funded 4 projects. We supported the exterior rehabilitation of 3 of Homeward's affordable housing properties. That would be the Equinox, Lenox Flats, and Phillips Street apartments. 2 of the projects are complete, and the 3rd is anticipated to be complete by the spring of 2025. We also supported the continuation of an owner-occupied rehabilitation program that provides loans to homeowners with low and moderate incomes. So far, 3 homeowners have been helped with program year 2023 funds, and the project is ongoing and has the capacity to help up to 2 additional households. CDBG funds were also used to increase home accessibility with the installation of wheelchair ramps for households with disabilities. Thanks to this program, 12 households have been able to remain in their homes, and this project is also ongoing. And finally, we funded a CDBG public service project. United Way's rental subsistence program helped 101 individuals stay in their homes by providing rental assistance and arrears. These households were all under 80% of our area median income, and that means about $50,000 a year for a 1-person household or about $72,000 a year for a household with 4 people. And so here's an overview of our outcomes. This is our HUD funding at work, but it's really the combination of our community partners and our HUD funding that make a difference in the city of Missoula. So a huge thank you to Homeward, the Human Resource Council, the Regional Access Mobility Program, and United Way for the dedication and the hard work that went into these outcomes. And this concludes our annual performance and evaluation report for HUD program year 2023. If there's anyone who'd like to read or comment directly on the CAPER report itself, they can do so by going to our Engage page at the URL listed here. And we will be accepting comments through September 26th. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ms. Pondorf. That's always wonderful to see the great work that's been accomplished through the last year. And we'll now move on to questions from council. Any questions from council tonight? No? All right, not seeing any online. We don't really have a main motion to make, right, Ms. Pondorf? There's no motion that the council needs to approve. This is the public hearing. We remain open until the 26th of September, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. So then we'll go ahead. It is a public hearing, however, so we would love to hear from members of the public if you're here to speak on this agenda item. If you are, come on up to the microphone, and we keep our public comments to 3 minutes. There's this handy dandy light up here that helps you track your time, and I'll help you do that from up here. And just say your name for the record.
Hello, I'm Sam Oliver. I'm the Executive Director of the Missoula Housing Authority, and I just want to come by tonight and remind everybody that these are extremely important funds, and the work that's done by our partners at the city to administrate these grants is tremendously important at a time when funding is so short across the continuum of affordable housing. As we saw tonight, these funds can sometimes contribute to some of our large projects that helped house 1,000 of our neighbors this year. But then it also contributes to smaller projects. So again, these are very valuable funds. We thank everybody for the administration and continued cooperation, because they are oftentimes a make it or break it source for us in affordable housing.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. We appreciate your work and, of course, the work of the Missoula Housing Authority and the homes that you continue to provide for Missoulians. Thank you very much. Other members of the public that wish to come up and speak, come on up.
Hello, Mayor Davis and Council. Good to see you. I just want to say thank you to the city for their patience. The Trinity project and the Bellagio project, we spent most of the last 5 years working on those projects, and your funding went in to support those homes. And as the numbers that were relayed, over 1,000 people have been assisted and continue to be assisted, and we greatly appreciate it. We will definitely testify to the CAPER and all the hard work that has gone into that for city staff, because those federal funds are vital dollars that go into those projects. I will say it was quite entertaining to also work through explaining and applying for capital improvements on some of our older projects. We built those, and guess what? Buildings don't last forever. And so we spent some quality time looking at the kind of critical capital needs that can be addressed with the limited amount of funds that are able to come into the city. And we were able to do a roof replacement at Equinox, a boiler replacement at Lennox, and some other improvements, and a few other properties for long-term sustainable operations. And without those funds, we wouldn't be, from the rents we collect from the residents and all the bills that we pay, we couldn't address those needs. And so for long-term affordability, both preservation and new construction, your assistance is greatly appreciated in the support of these funds. So thank you very much. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Before you go, would you please say your name for the record, despite us all knowing who
Heather
you are?
Heather McMillan, the Project Development Director for Homeward.
Thank you very much, Ms. McMillan, and appreciate your great work for the community as well. Thanks for the additional comments around housing preservation. Definitely a very needed aspect. Other members of the public that wish to come up?
Good evening, gang. Good to see you again. Eric Legvold, E-R-I-C-L-E-G, V as in Victor, O-L-D. I am the Director of Impact at United Way of Missoula County, and lead logistic manager of the Housing Solutions Fund, particularly the CDBG funds that come through our organization and go through 211's HRC department to our community members. With the $75,000, we expended $74,999.65. Of that, it went to 42 households. If you think of the 42 households, roughly 34 were based on prevention, making sure that we keep our households in the homes before that they fall into houselessness. And then roughly the other 8 homes or households receive the funds. We could not be more grateful for the partnership and the constant support of the programs that help support us, particularly Karen and staff. Other than that, I am open to any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Legvold? All right. Thank you, Mr. Legvold, and the great work of the United Way. The Housing Solutions Fund is an excellent resource, and I will remind the members of the community that not just government funds can go into the Housing Solution Funds, but it is a philanthropic fund, and anybody could contribute to that, which could help somebody stay in their home, provide for a security deposit, or gap in rent. So just mention that for you. United Way is easy to find online. All right, as are the other organizations that presented tonight, so no favoritism here, just making sure you know that. All right, any other members of the public that wish to speak tonight? Come on up. Okay.
Big K, Montana, Spitzmacher, S-P-I-T-Z-M-A-C-H-E-R. How come we didn't mention the blue heron? That's the most prosperable housing department that comes out of the Poverello. And is it not overseen by the Poverello? And it's part of the housing project. Is it not?
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Spitzmacher. Other members of the public wishing to make comment on this agenda item? Sorry? What was the question? Did you have a question you wanted to answer? You certainly, if you want to come on up and talk about Blue Heron Place, you bet, Ms. McMillan, come on up.
Again, Heather McMillan, a Project Development Director for Homeward, and I do want to say that we are thrilled for the assistance because Blue Heron is a 30-home permanent supportive project included in our Trinity project, and that might have been glossed over a little bit in the presentation because there were a lot of housing projects that were addressed with these funds over the last 2 years. So yes, we are thrilled. So is the Housing Authority that that project has come to fruition, and we're taking one small bite out of the houseless pie of need here in Missoula. So thank you. Just wanted to clarify that.
Absolutely. Thank you for your clarification. So Blue Heron Place is part of the Trinity Apartments property. All right. Other additional public comment? Come on up. What? Okay. Think Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Clayton Shaya, S-H-A-Y-A. I think it's grand that these funds come in. I'm really happy to hear about all the people that were helped by them. I was really happy to hear at the end that there was a focus on, you know, some houselessness being affected by the issue. What really stands out to me is that we can allocate these funds and we can make them work for a number of 1,000 people when our point in time count for homelessness is 650 and we can't address it. And we're lucky. We have 80,000 people with a 650 point in time count. Grants Pass has 40,000 and a 2,000 point in time count. We don't really even have the burden yet. Maybe that is the benefit of a 10-year ratification program. It always resonates that we don't quite take enough to deal with this massive problem that we're making special presentations for. Neighborhood reports. I'll be really impressed when somebody asks for the unhoused neighborhood report.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Shea. All right, other members of the public in the audience here wishing to make public comment this evening? Not seeing any in the room, then online. Online we have Sherrill Rasmussen. Can you go ahead and unmute there?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
Cheryl Drake Rasmussen, Ward 5. I really appreciate hearing all the numbers of getting people in housing, but as a landlord, every one of our experiences with a voucher program has ended up in a lot of damages and no way to remediate that. So with all these programs, is it possible also to at least provide the taxpaying public a 6-month follow through to see if that housing was just getting somebody in and if they were just put back out, and look at the whole number versus just taking these little pieces? Thank you.
You bet. Thank you very much for your comment this evening, Ms. Rasmussen, and members, both the Human Resource Council and the Missoula Housing Authority administer the Section 8 program and could help answer any questions or concerns you have there. Other members of the public online wishing to make public comment? Okay. Not seeing any, then that wraps up our public comment this evening, and it just comes back to council for any comments or questions that you may have. Not seeing any in the room, any online? And not seeing any online. We don't have a vote this evening. This remains open. Again, public comment is taken on the consolidated annual performance and evaluation report through September 26th. at which time the city staff will wrap that up and submit our annual report for compliance purposes to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So with that, that wraps up this item. Very much appreciate the grantee agencies being here. Thank you very much for sharing your success stories, and congratulations on all your hard work. And Ms. Pondorf, I don't believe there's anything else, so I think that wraps up this agenda item.
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your great work. All right. So that is the end of our public hearings this evening. We do not have any new business, and so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda were approved in city council committees to be placed on the consent agenda to save time at council meetings by voting on them as a package. The city clerk will read the list aloud so citizens watching on MCAT will know what is on the consent agenda, and then we'll invite community comment on these items before we vote. I have received a note from Councilors Vasecka and Campbell that they wish to separate item 8.5. So we will anticipate separating 8.5 from the beginning. Any other items that councilors wish to separate before we hear Ms. Trimble read those aloud? Okay, not seeing any. Ms. Trimble, if you'll go ahead and read the consent agenda, please.
All right. On tonight's consent agenda, we begin with a motion to approve accounts payable or claims for checks dated September 17th, 2024 in the amount of $2,467,212.78. The next motion is to authorize the mayor to sign the professional services agreement amendment number 1 with WGM Group, Inc. for the South Avenue Safe Streets and Roads for All, or SS4A, a grant project at the cost of not to exceed $520,654.67. Our next motion is to set a public hearing for October 21st, 2024 for a resolution of the Missoula City Council increasing the municipal stormwater, wastewater, and water utility rates for each of the fiscal years FY25, FY26, and FY27, and to amend the utility rate schedule to be effective January 1st, 2025. And then we'll vote on the main motion on the evening of that public hearing. The next motion is to authorize the mayor to sign and execute an interlocal agreement with the county for funding of emergency sheltering services at the Johnson Street Temporary Emergency Shelter. And, do we have that on there twice? Oh, there's an interlocal agreement and then there's the funding. And the final motion, the one to be separated, is to authorize the mayor to sign and execute an agreement with the Poverello Center for the provision of emergency sheltering services at the Johnson Street Shelter.
Okay, thank you very much for reading those aloud. Again, noting that 8.5 will be separated in vote. After hearing the items, do any council members wish to separate any agenda items from the consent agenda? Okay, not seeing any then. And can we go ahead and take vote on 8.1 to 8.4? Okay, great. So Ms. Trimble will go ahead and do a voice vote on the balance of the consent agenda, items 8.1 to 8.4, please.
There are 2 hands raised. Or are you guys just in anticipation of the next part of this?
I'm getting a nod, yes?
Yeah, I would just like to comment on that when it comes up.
Great. Yes, thank you for clarifying.
All right. Moving to the voice vote of items 8.1 through 8.4. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? And those 4 pass unanimously.
Great, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote on item 8.5. Before we do that, though, we'll invite council comment, and Councilor Campbell, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So I'll be voting against 8.5 disagreement for reasons I mentioned in committee last week, including inadequate oversight of the $1.8 million in taxpayer dollars and no concrete steps to mitigate impacts to residential and commercial neighbors. Additionally, after further research, it appears to me section BA1 of the scope of work advises of the Poverello's requirement to transition 6 guests per month into temporary permanent housing solutions, quote unquote. I have concerns about the lack of language in the agreement by which the city can enforce this clause, that in fact, this is nothing more than aspirational feel-good language that has no place in a binding contract like this. This aspiration goes up to 9 guests per month after a year. The only way I see the city can enforce this presumed requirement would be to declare the POV in default under paragraph 12 of the contract and seek to terminate the contract, which obviously is never going to happen, or impose some sort of monthly monetary penalty. I would also clarify that the term of the temporary or permanent housing solutions doesn't include incarceration at the county jail. Separately, I feel payment of the $1.8 million should be made in maximum monthly installments rather than any sorts of lump sum or money as required from the Poverello from time to time. I think this would help avoid the situation where the POV, for reasons unforeseen or otherwise, burn through the entire $1.8 million amount in, say, 10 months and then end up coming back to us for a supplemental appropriation, perhaps necessitating another emergency declared by the mayor, MRA remittance, or some other extreme measure. So again, for these various reasons, I will not be in support of this contract. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Vasecka.
Thanks. I know that we have I believe it's a resolution to raise the shelter within 2 years now, but I will continue to advocate to move that shelter out of this neighborhood sooner if we can. I've been very vocal about my reasons why, but we did just receive an email the other day. I'm not going to specify who it was from, but it was regarding a school in the vicinity, and part of the email reads, I have been told repeatedly that this shelter is not permanent, but yet year after year, we continue to see violence, drug use, unsanitary conditions, and unsafe people as the shelter remains open. Now, as we begin school, we are having to patrol the playground before students arrive. This week, we found a bag of needles, powder, socks, and a pill. This morning, we had to clean human feces off of our playground structure. I understand that it's not everybody that is at the shelter that is doing this, but it has been happening. This is 5 years now, and it is incredibly frustrating for the neighbors and me as I guess it's not in my ward anymore, but I've been discussing it for the past 5 years, ever since I started my tenure on council. And if you want to live in society, you have to adhere by society's rules. If you want to use the resources that society has to offer you, you can't treat society like this. So I'm incredibly frustrated with the continuity of this behavior, and so that is one of the reasons why I'm not going to be supporting this tonight.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Councillor Vasecka. Councillor Nugent.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. You referenced the commitment to the resolution we passed last year that I introduced to commit to starting the master planning for the future of this property this year and basically raise the property and move it out of this neighborhood within 3 years. We are doing that. The master planning, the MRA actually was at our committee last Wednesday, as you well know, but I think there's people in the audience that might deserve this update to begin that process. So I think that in the broader context of that, we are moving forward, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that this neighborhood is not this was not the intended use of this property when the city acquired it. I think that in the broader conversation we're having right now about our parks and the impacts we're feeling on that if we close Johnson Street next month, that issue is only going to get worse, not better. So while I agree with the issues you outlined being concerning, and I think we need to step up enforcement and figure out ways to address those, unless we have another place to direct people to go, we aren't simply going to close Johnson Street next month and have 170 people or whatever it is just leave the community. And I think that that's kind of something that while we're having this conversation, it's important for it to be said out loud, because I don't think it's as simple as just saying, don't be homeless here, and people aren't going to be homeless here. I tend to agree with what I think you and I have discussed, that parks are not the place for people to be living. And Because of that, I don't think we can close the Johnson Street Center immediately. We have to plan for it, which is why it was a 3-year run-up instead of immediately. So I just wanted to make sure that that was part of this conversation, but I do appreciate both your comments.
Thank you for providing that additional context, Councillor Nugent. Councillor Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick one. Mr. Nugent, you mentioned that you introduced the proposal to move the Johnson Street shelter, but the three of us did, me, you, and Sandy, and it's come up 3 or 4 times in the last year where you've mentioned that you brought it up by yourself, but it was in conjunction with all 3 of us, and I just wanted to clear the record.
Thank you for that additional information, Councillor Jordan. Are there other council members that wish to make any comment on this agenda item? Okay. All right, then not hearing any, we'll go ahead and we will do a roll call vote. Ms. Trimble.
All right, voting on what was formerly 8.5.
Oh, yes. Thank you. My apologies.
No, I got my hand up a little late, but I do have a question.
Hold on one second, Mr. Shea. We'll go ahead and we will take public comment prior to the vote on item 8.5. Sorry, we took it for the full consent agenda earlier. Which actually, sorry, Mr. Carlino, I took public comment on the full consent agenda. Sorry, it got me all confused there. So we already did public comment on all items on the consent agenda, regardless of this item being separated. So. It was public comment on the agenda. Oh, was it 8284? All right, folks, calm down. I gotcha. All right, we will go ahead and take public comment on this agenda item. Please come up to the podium, say your name for the record. 3 minutes maximum, please. I ask that folks come and present in a way that is respectful for the audience this evening, and if not, and for this council, I will go ahead and make sure that we can maintain decorum in this audience this evening. Thank you.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Have every intention of that. My name is Amy Kyle, Keil, and I live across from McLeod Park. And this is just an email that I had started today, but I do feel that the city was negligent and did not do due diligence about explaining anything that was happening, and that for those of us who pay our taxes, sit back, are just good people, vote for people, and just kind of expect things to happen. This seems like a hefty price to pay for not coming to meetings, that things just get ramrodded through, and all of a sudden you have to be more vocal and more passionate than you wanted to be. Very simply, during COVID, we were mailed a flyer. My husband and I were like, absolutely, people should not be dying in shelters when they need space. So we approved a temporary winter shelter. Now we are here, how many years later? And nothing has come to us in that same way since then. No one has canvassed the neighborhoods. No one has said, put a notice in the park, the neighbors will get it to each other. No one has taken that time or the consideration for us as residents, for our property values. 2 homeowners are selling their homes on Kent Avenue in this last 2-week period of time because they are so afraid of what's going to happen. That whole area surrounding this facility is low and middle income families. So I suppose if you're trying to create more affordable housing, you can do to our neighborhood what happened around the POV, and you can degrade our home values. But I think the city did not do a good enough job. Wherever you decide to go in the future, you must let everyone in a certain block radius know and come to us, because we do have empathy, we do have compassion, but sometimes you just ask too much and you surprise us with it, and we don't feel like we had a voice at all. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments this evening, Ms. Kyle. Other members of the public, come on up.
Mayor, Council.
Hello.
Hi. My name is Carrie Britton. I live in, you don't need to know where I live, right?
No, but if we'd like to share it, we're always interested to know what ward.
I live in Missoula County. And actually, I had a property that was a business that was next to the Poverello about 3 years ago, and I ran it for about 5 years. So I know the hardships from a homeless standpoint and from a business person standpoint, and the difficulties. So I have compassion in both directions. So there was a 10-year plan that was in 2012 to eliminate homelessness in Missoula. It is now 2022. And there was even a position that was created for this, and I'm not sure, I don't know if that was worth our money. I was wondering if another 10-year plan was made. I don't know. I really appreciate Councilman Vasecka. I really appreciate your commentary where a lot of the homeless people just do not have respect for our personal properties, and then we're trying to make it better for them. It's really like a slap in the face. I see $1 million of the county money is going towards the Johnson shelter. It's really hard for me to see that money do that when there's no appreciation for what we're doing. And I agree. I know there's hardship, but there are some choices. As far as the master plan goes, back when Poverello was being created, the mental health professionals in Missoula wanted the POV to be out by the detention center. That way they could create a complex that would have mental health and drug abuse and, all sorts of things that could help the homeless population and those that were having difficulties. That was not the case, chose the north side neighborhood where the POV is now, which kind of destroyed that neighborhood. And then I really feel bad for the Johnson Street neighborhood. I used to live over in that area. And it's just sad that we have not, in 10 years, now longer, haven't created a complex or a facility that can take care of our homeless population and make them feel like they are a part of our community. Maybe they would not treat us so poorly. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Ms. Britton. I welcome other members of the public to come on up, but as a reminder to those in the audience, to please hold your commentary to yourself. The reason I ask you to do that is because everybody deserves the opportunity to come up and provide public comment in a place that is considered to be safe and free of comment from the public. All right, come on up.
My name is Clayton Shea. I guess I'm relatively wordless at this point. We've said this before. I've definitely come in and harped about it. If we want the people that we put into the shelters to be less impactful on the neighborhood around them, they have to have something to do. No programs, no AA, no NA, no GED, no church, no nothing. When we asked about rolling out the mat to do yoga on it, the wrestling mat, they cut the wrestling mat and threw it out the back door instead. It's not just a building that's going to solve the problem. It's what you do with the people in the building. If we continuously take the bottom of this culture and put it into housing instead of creaming the top and taking people who are actually trying to get jobs and actually trying to get up and out of shelter and putting them into housing, those people are staying in shelter and just treading water. It's the most backwards situation. Now, as far as emergency or temporary shelter, that just seems like an excuse to run it the way it's run. It's still the same food production. It's still a day-old food from the Poverello. It's got really nice bathrooms right now. Awesome. Really did a great job with those, they really did. And things do change a little bit. You're seeing a lot less animosity from the staff. You're seeing people able to feed and eat and make food with each other. It's a big deal, but unless we're gonna ungentrify this town, it's not temporary. It's a fourth of our homeless population. And half of our homeless population is still unhoused. What's temporary about that? However, I was at Franklin School last year when it was promised that this was going to be done this year. And by continuing in this space, we're pitting two parts of the city against each other. We're pitting homeless against housed by promising someone that they won't have to deal with this problem anymore. I went to see a friend of mine unhoused in an RV the other day. There were 3 people in different trucks pulled up in front of him like it was a tailgating party, revving their engines, ripping up and down the street, throwing beer cans at the RV, asking me if I want to drink when I come up. Pretending like bad behavior happens at a shelter is ignorant, because it happens on both sides of the fence. If the parks were a bad choice for where to put people, then we spend a lot of time telling people that they should go there just so they can be harassed.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Shea. Other members in the audience tonight wishing to make public comment?
Big K, Montana, Spitzmacher, SPITC, MHC Chair. We need to change the picture. End homelessness? What a joke. Let's change it. How do we manage the issues and the circumstances? I didn't say problems, the issues and the circumstances better. If our American agricultural industry has moved on like we do as citizens of our people, you'd have to go out and cannibalize somebody for your protein. You can bank on that one. The agricultural industry is one of the most successful industries out there that keeps the railroad moving. So let's change the format. We need to tell the homeless specific problems that our taxpayers just mentioned tonight. How many homeless people actually hear the rhetoric that comes out of this building and other buildings of this country? I don't hear it at the Poverello of the problems that the neighborhood is creating. Nothing to the fact of the matter. You need to put the problems that the taxpayers are realizing in the faces of the homeless, all of them. So the ones that are participating of the problems can oversight the ones that are and start appropriately addressing the issues of why the ones get persecuted that oversight the ones that are creating the problems. And the staff at the Poverello.
Mr. Spitzmacher, please keep your voice down. Thank you.
The staff and the management of the Poverello is the problem when I hear circumstances that are worse than the continent of Africa. It's like spitting in my face and you people are laughing and enjoying it. Let's bring the problems that the taxpayers should be sharing at the open forum meetings. What are they called? Of the Johnson Center? That gal that just spoke should be speaking, and those meetings should be televised for all the people on big screen TVs at the Johnson Center, that the homeless actually hear the issues and the problems that are being created for the majority that may be a few. Let's put the problem of the few dealt with appropriately, and let's get the homeless to help you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spitzmacher. Other members of the public in the audience tonight wishing to make public comment?
Hi, my name is Lisa Thomas, and I have written to my council members a couple times. I have been a part of that neighborhood since 1978, and I'm going to tell you I am extremely frustrated and angry with what is going on. I can't even have my grandkids play in the park anymore. We can't even access the Railing Park anymore, and we are all very tired and done. You need to do something about this.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Appreciate your comments. Other members in the audience wishing to make public comment? Not seeing any here in the room. How about online? Ms. Rasmussen.
Yes, Sherrill Rasmussen, Ward 5. Yes, I agree with the last two gentlemen that got up and spoke. I'm a 40-year recovering addict. The only reason I got out of that, I was homeless, was because there were programs, there were standards. If I wanted to get out of solitary confinement, I had to meet a standard. You're not teaching anyone anything by throwing them in housing, but more failure. This needs to be addressed. I am one of the volunteers that was pushed out by one of your nonprofits from the Outreach Society. There's many of us, because you don't want the community in there. It's a cover-up. They are fraudulent. We watch your Poverello, your inmate program, by the way, that oversees homeless, trauma to trauma, nothing but disaster. We watch these employees abuse people, abuse power. One of my folks was staying in an apartment with one of the Poverello workers. That's right. So what you're doing is it's an open drug den. Nothing is being done to prevent this in the future. There are no steps. You've taken the bottom out of all addiction and you're making it comfortable so you can collect federal funds. It's disgusting and it's inhumane. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Rasmussen. Please hold your applause. This is, I realize that you're excited about this, but no applause, please. We want to make sure people feel comfortable to continue to make public comment. They may have a point that's opposite of yours, and so that is why we ask people not to applaud or heckle. All right. Other members of the audience or the public wishing to make public comment this evening? Okay, not seeing any. That wraps up public comment on item 8.5. Thank you for correcting me, folks. I didn't realize that I had not taken public comment on that item. We will do a roll call vote for this agenda item, please.
All right, let's start that again. Roll call vote on item that was formerly 8.5 on the consent agenda, beginning with Anderson.
Yes.
Becerra.
Yes.
Campbell.
No.
Carlino.
Yes.
Farmer.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Melson.
Yes.
Nugent.
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Sherrill.
Yes.
And Vasecka.
No.
And that's 10 in favor, 2 opposed.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And thank you, members of the public that came down to share your opinion and your concerns this evening. City Council is not really a dialogue back and forth that we can answer questions or talk to concerns. There will be opportunity later through communications from the mayor and council. We may certainly offer comment at that time and certainly take your concerns to heart, knowing how incredibly difficult this situation is on everyone. And as neighbors, I also live near the Johnson Street shelter. I understand some of the challenges that you manage. I live near the trail system myself, and I will also say that this issue is very difficult to manage from a city administration and a staffing perspective, in which we are dealing with a relatively insurmountable challenge, or a surmountable challenge, without really the funding resources that we need from federal, state. So we're doing the darn best we can, and we will absolutely take your consideration and concerns as we move forward with the improvements that we've been making at Johnson Street recently. We're trying to address some of the neighbors and concerns and the concerns of guests, which is why we have recently invested in those modular showers and bathrooms. Those will be moved off-site when that is no longer a shelter, but we were told and have been told already that that really helps the guests that are there, and folks that are also living unsheltered are able to use those bathrooms and showers. And so that type of amenity some of us take for granted every day is something that really helps people living in that type of situation feel a lot more dignified, and it's helpful. on a daily basis. We're also working with the Poverello Center, who operates the Johnson Street shelter, to do some cost-affordable improvements to the site. We're doing greater security in terms of the doors that are on site there, as well as the fencing that creates a courtyard for the guests there. It will provide a bit more buffer for the neighbors that live in the neighborhood. And we're currently, you might see us dismantling an awning that is old and falling apart. We want to make sure that that's not causing any public safety issues, so we're taking that down, but we are putting up a small awning over the staff door to make sure that folks have protection from ice and snow during the winter months. This Johnson Street contract has funding for fiscal year 25. We keep addressing our operational goals with, again, the Poverello Center that administers the Johnson Street shelter. That is why there are housing outcomes, Councillor Campbell. It's something that I and members of the staff, but this administration feels very strongly that that we need to make sure that we are housing focused. One thing that I don't think any of us are interested in is just warehousing people, and that's exactly what that place looks like. It is an old warehouse. It was not built to be a shelter to begin with. But when we had people dying of hypothermia on the streets, our community members asked us to do something, and that's what we have done. It is not an easy situation, and I apologize for that. I wish that we could alleviate that for your neighborhood now, today, and find a better location in a brand new building in a site that is not impactful to others. It's going to take all of us to lean in to find a better solution, and we're working on that daily. In the meantime, this facility, I'm hopeful that we will continue to get people a safe place to sleep, eat, connect to services, and eventually find stability in their lives. And we continue to take your comments to heart in ways that we can continue to try to alleviate the pressure on your neighborhood. And again, I apologize for what I recognize is a substantial impact to your neighborhood. And we will continue to take your input. We want to hear your complaints. If you ever have a criminal situation or where you feel unsafe, we encourage you to call 911. If it is not an emergency, we ask that you do call and place a comment in the online form so we can track that and we can make sure that we follow up appropriately. We make sure that we follow up with the Poverello Center. The other thing that I would ask members of the public, if you are concerned and wish to share your concerns or ideas with the Poverello Center, they host a monthly meeting on the second Tuesday of every month. That is a virtual meeting. You can sign up. It's via Zoom. It's from 5:30 to 6:30. Every single month, there are city staff providing updates that they may have, and importantly, from the operator of that facility, the Poverello Center. So I would encourage members to participate in that as you can. And with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up this agenda item and move on to item 9, which is regular business. We do not have any items under regular business this evening. And so we will move on now to public comment on non-agenda items. Public comment on non-agenda items, please. Come on up.
Robert Dunlop, 2316 West Kent. This year for, that's DUNLOP, this year for the 24-25 budget, the City Council was able to reduce the rate of tax increase that we had seen in previous years. And for that, you're to be commended. So I hope in that same spirit, you will show the same eagerness to examine the spending of the water and sewer rates prior to your October public hearing. Since we took, or the city took over the water, if you figure it out, the rate has really more than doubled, and they're getting a blank check for the next 3 years. The way you have it set up now, they're guaranteed like 6, 7, 7, or whatever it is. So if you can examine their expenditures a little bit, it would be appreciated. It's especially hard, that water bill, on some of us that have to pay 2 water bills, one to the city, which we can utilize, and the other to the irrigation district. where we have absolutely no access to the water, but it's in our deed that we have to pay for it. Me, the ditch is over a block away, and I'd have to cross 2 streets and set up a pump that pollutes the air, so it isn't worth it. So please examine those water sewer expenses. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Dunlap. Other members of the audience wishing to make public comment on non-agenda items? Not seeing any in the room. How about online? One second, Mr. Spitzmacher, I went ahead and saw folks online. Ms. Rasmussen.
Sherrill Drake Rasmussen.
Go right ahead.
Sherrill Rasmussen, Ward 5. Yeah, I was just real quick. I just heard him in the county meeting too, and I know you guys both deal with Missoula Redevelopment Agency. And I was curious if you guys found the Amazon building and what those taxes went to, because I believe you gave them to MRA. Have a great night.
For the record, the Amazon building is in the county. All right. Missoula Redevelopment Agency does not fund anything in the county. Mr. Spitzmacher, come on up.
As I just got back from a hiatus from the north of here, they've got their problems too, and they're a different affiliated political perspective. And I also talked to the gal that are starting the issues of the problems that we have with the Johnson Center. No different color, same flavor. But I did leave her with this comment when I talked to her about the fact of the matter. Where are you going to put the trophy case of the genocide of the city? And you mentioned what I mean by the trophy case of the genocide of the city in the winter time. The Poverello Center and the Johnson Center are essential need of humanity, of any living infrastructure. As I said, the American agriculture, especially Montana, loves to take care of their cattle for the dollar signs that comes in through the supermarket that the middleman makes more. We need to treat the people that need it appropriately, and I mentioned it earlier. Pictures need to be broadcast on big screen TVs in the shelters to the problems that the taxpayers mentioned here today, and better yet, the ones that are not being mentioned, to show the problem that some of these individuals make that are emergency. And the issue that was mentioned at the school, that was malicious of that individual to the fact of the matter as it was said. And that's horrendous to the rest of the homeless populace. And the rest of the homeless populace should feel that's horrendous too, that was mentioned at that school to the matter for the fact. And that's the problem. We're sheltering the problems from the people that create the problems that could help oversight and maybe work with you of the problems if appropriately realized of the people that manage the problems of the Poverello and the Johnson Center. Big screen TVs for advertisements, whether they like it or not, they gotta read it. Remember Red Dawn, 1982, the concentration camp, how the propaganda was at the internment area?
Thank you very much, Mr. Spitzmacher. All right, any other members of the public wishing to make comment on items not on the agenda? Not seeing any. All right, thanks. That wraps up the public comment on non-agenda items. We'll move on to communications from the mayor. I had an opportunity to speak a bit to the approach to the Johnson Street shelter, and I look forward to continuing updates as community members do work on future opportunities with the Poverello Center and others addressing needs for the shelter. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and we've mentioned here quite a bit, but also for the benefit of members of the audience, is that the city has been working on the next community-led strategy to address homelessness. Yes, there was a 10-year plan in place, and Missoula was not alone. It was a federal request, or even dictate to call it our plan to end homelessness. I think that's a great aspiration, and it's okay to have aspirations. We achieved towards that. There's been a lot of economic and societal circumstances that have changed in our country that have really challenged the ability to end homelessness. I will say that as a municipality, and those up north, other municipalities in the city, in the great state of Montana, are also managing this very challenging situation, as is all of our country. We are underway with our next community strategy to address homelessness, and we anticipate that being ready for the public in this winter. So looking forward to a presentation here at Council. I know you've been receiving updates along the way, but excited to see what community-led strategies are articulated in that plan. The other thing I wanted to speak to is some circumstances that have happened in these last several days. Again, there was an assassination attempt over the weekend of the former president, and that level of violence is just, we have no place for it in this country. Our level of tolerance of one another and of opposing views has become really impossibly intolerable, and it's very unfortunate. The other unfortunate thing that I wish to speak to is that the commentary that has been made around certain immigrants and Haitian immigrants in Ohio led to some aggressive behavior of immigrants here in our community. Those are legal immigrants. Those are folks that have come here legally through the immigration system. There are folks that are, this was a woman and her young son. And there were some aggressive comments and behaviors that made this person feel unsafe and unwelcome. And I think that's a real minority of our community. I truly believe that Missoula is different than that we are a community that welcomes folks that are from other cultures and other belief systems. And we are a community that embraced the International Rescue Committee when they reformed here, and of course the nonprofit Soft Landing exists here to help people that are immigrating and migrating to our community through often the asylum process and through the legal asylum process to actually relocate and start a new life in Missoula. These folks would rather be at home. I've talked with many of these migrants that have immigrated here because this is really their last option. They've been living in encampments, they've been living in situations in which their lives were threatened from a lot of political disarray in their home countries. And I do hope that we can look past this. To hear about this was rather unsettling, and my goal this evening is just to continue to remind us that we are better than that as Missoula. I really believe that, and this is a one-off situation, and this is a time in which we are experiencing a lot of pressure as a community, as a society, as a nation. But we can come together, and we really can love one another in ways that really get us through some of these tough times. And so for folks that are listening and those here in the audience, I just wanted to mention that there are organizations out there that are working to bridge folks of different color, different background, different language. And that is Soft Landing of Missoula, that's one. Another that I wanted to mention that I was brought to the attention of was, hold on one second, sorry, my screen just closed out on me, is the Florence Immigrant and Refugee Rights Project. So there are some organizations in our community that are looking to build a bridge amongst those that are looking for a home, worldwide home. And I just wanted to encourage us to take a deep breath and continue to work to make this a strong community. Thank you. I'll turn this over to council comments, and President Sherrill, I'll start with you.
I don't have anything to add, but I appreciate your comments tonight.
Thank you very much. Councilor Becerra?
Nothing, and I too appreciate your comments.
Thank you. Councilor Melson?
Echo my colleagues in past, but also want to extend an appreciation branch.
Thank you. Councilor Savage?
Agreed and pass.
All right. Councilor Nugent?
I'm not going to pass.
All right.
Rarely. I want to thank everybody for coming down and speaking up. I think that one thing that has been, I don't want to use the word positive, but interesting over the last 2 months is that more people are participating in this conversation than have been. And I actually think that that's very important. Where that goes, I think, is up to the community to decide. And, I think it's important in this broader kind of conversation about accountability and, if somebody is not following a rule, Missoula has 3 branches of government, and one of them is a court system. It's municipal courts. And we don't have much control at all over that branch. So there are times where, an officer might cite somebody for something, and then it goes through the court system, and potentially a victim of that crime might not feel like they got the justice that they were looking for. I know that happens in both directions in that court, but I think that it's important for people to recognize that that is a separate elected branch of our government, and one that probably merits the same amount of attention that this issue is getting right now.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councilor Nugent. Councilor Farmer.
Thanks. I was going to mention the Missoula Cemetery and the event yesterday, the Stories and Stones event that they held, which I got to attend, which was great. So thanks to those volunteers and the cemetery for putting that on. But I do also want to comment, I guess, to the neighborhood, the Johnson Street neighborhood. I completely understand the frustration that neighborhood is feeling. I've lived next door to the Poverello since it moved from downtown to Broadway. I know 100% how frustrating that is. And I want the neighborhood to know that we want to hear from you. We want you to keep holding us accountable. When the second shelter was proposed in Ward 2, long before I was on council, the neighborhood did rally together, and the city did hear them. So your voice really does matter, and we do want to hear from you. I guess I would also just mention that I'm not aware of the city turning away any sort of help. So if there are faith-based communities out there, if NA is out there and AA is out there chomping at the bit to come forward and help us, please do, because the city can't do this alone. So I think we all have the right intention. We all want to find a solution. But we're not going to do it alone. We have to have a lot of folks at the table. So please keep bringing those members forward and helping us solve it together, because we all share the frustration. We're all feeling it. So.
Thank you very much, Councilor Farmer. And Councilor Anderson.
Thanks so much, Madam Mayor. Appreciate your taking the time for those comments, and that kind of helps highlight sometimes why I'm a bit of a stickler about decorum in our room, and really mindful of the words that we say around this dais, and because words matter and they have impact, and you may think if it's a flippant comment, but the long-term ramifications of what we say can have harmful effects that none of us intended. So thank you for pointing that out. And I appreciate what Ms. Farmer just said, and really highlighting the fact that, it is going to take all of us. I was not on council in 2012, and I think if I had been, I think I would have objected very loudly to anything saying a 10-year plan to end homelessness, because it's a great aspirational goal, but unfortunately, there have been people in our society, our neighbors, family and friends, who have struggled with, have all sorts of struggles, and finding shelter is not always as easy as it is for some of us who, have many advantages. And so It's something that our late Mayor Engen used to say that the goal was to make it an infrequent, and I'm going to get this wrong, and short term and infrequent. Someone can help me out on this, but the essence of it was that if you ended up having to experience houselessness, that it would be brief and infrequent. There we go. That's what I would. And one come to me. Yeah. So yes, that I think is what our goal is, and I appreciate that the folks in the neighborhood. We're scrambling to figure out what to do because literally we were at one point in time housing people in the transit center down here, and it was never the intention for this building to be long-term. Also, no one's plans had a 100-year pandemic factored into all of them, so it seems as though the perfect storm. I am excited to have the conversations around what that potential piece of property can look like. Not going to be a shelter, it's going to be something different. And I realize if you feel like your grandkids can't come now to your house, waiting 2 years to see that redeveloped is a really long time that you are no longer interested in being patient. But we hear you and we're trying to affect and do what we can with it. But it is, as Ms. Farmer said, going to take all of us and some creative thinking and some help from our friends at the state level, for sure. So. Hadn't planned on commenting tonight, but thanks for letting me have the time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Jones.
Sure. Thanks for coming down in the comments tonight. I can just a few points to hit. There was a comment made at some point, I think tonight, that we're taking federal money for the homeless programs that we have, and there's really not any federal money coming into Missoula. This is local money. I wish we had state money, but there aren't those types of resources out there. So I just wanted to clarify that, first of all. Second of all, I know that folks that are living close to the Johnson Street shelter and that people who are looking at the urban camping ordinance and how that is working at this point are talking a lot about it. I think it's great to have more people in on this conversation because we need that in this room, and we need it to be constructive and respectful and professional, and that's the best way we're going to get this to go forward. But I can tell you that amongst counselors and amongst staff in the city, we talk about this all the time. It is not ignored. We talk about it all the time, trying to figure out the next best steps. It's a hard one, but I just want you to know this is there are a lot of things to focus on in the city. This takes a huge amount of oxygen and energy. I wish we had solutions, but I think we are really looking at what's the next best step forward and figuring out how to do that. And yeah, we spend a lot of time on it. So just wanted to make that clear. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just say I agree with my colleagues and their comments tonight, particularly Mayor Davis, your comments, and my colleague, Mr. Nugent. Quite a bit of frustration in municipal court. I mean, I'll just leave it at that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. And Councillor Vasecka.
Thank you. I agree with pretty much everything that everyone said tonight for our comments. First, I wanted to say thank you to Sierra for bringing up Stories and Stones. My mom and her friends went, and I was unable to make it, but I always hear great things about it, so I'm happy that they put that on. I never thought that I would live to see one assassination attempt on a president or former president, let alone two. So this anger and all the violent rhetoric, it has to stop. I disagree. Everyone knows that I disagree with the majority of my colleagues on here, but we have such a great rapport that we can disagree on a very polite level. And I want to see that on the national level. I want to see that with everybody. And seeing that it's the beginning of Constitution Week, I just wanted to read the preamble to remind everybody that We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. That's we, the people of the United States. We, the people of Missoula, Montana. I love seeing everybody come down here. Even if you think that everybody on council will disagree with you or agree with you, I love having everyone down here to voice their opinion because we represent you. So come down, have your voice heard. I love seeing everybody down here. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Vasecka, and for reading the preamble of the Constitution. That was perfect timing. That's good. Councillor Carlino.
And I can pass tonight.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Jordan, online. Any comments this evening?
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple really quickly. One is that there is a River Road Neighborhood Council meeting next Tuesday night at Garden City Harvest at 6 o'clock. Everybody's welcome, including children, and there will be free food. The other thing that is happening this weekend, which I would go to if I was going to be here, is the Legacy Liftoff. If there are any mountain bikers out there in the community, Legacy is having a really cool event this weekend, and you can find out more at their website, legacybikepark.com. Should be a really good time. And lastly, I just want to say that I am, actually I also wanted to say one more thing. Mayor, I do really appreciate your comments as well. I think it's really important to remember that we need to find a way to get along, and that violence and rhetoric are not the solution to finding pathways forward. And I, on that note, want to say I'm grateful to our local service providers and, the police and our courts and our city attorneys and county attorneys and our judges who are all working in evidence-based best practices that encourage people to get out of the criminal justice system, because the criminal justice system isn't the place to get behavioral modifications. I think specifically regarding our houseless folks, I just think over and over about the report that Missoula Economic Partnership published, which was an incredibly revealing report. I would have figured that there would have been an economic angle that was favorable to businesses by Missoula Economic Partnership, and that report was not. It was just based in fact, and it spoke to the fact that 90% of our unhoused neighbors were last housed in our neighborhood. So these are folks that used to live in houses next to us and in apartment buildings next to us. These are not folks who are running around looking for free handouts. And the other thing that really stood out from that report is that the number one driver of houselessness is housing affordability. And so, things like putting caps on how much real estate agents can earn, I think is a really good way to start making sure that we're managing affordability and other things in other tools in our toolbox that we can use to kind of control housing affordability is a really important piece. These folks who are unhoused are human beings. They're somebody's son, daughter, mother, father, sister, brother. They have communities that are important to them. They have relationships that are important to them. They have goals. They have fears. They may look different to ours, but they are exactly like housed people. And I think it's really important to remember that. And that's all I have to say for tonight. So thank you for my time, Mayor.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Jordan. And with those comments, that wraps us up this evening. I'll go ahead and adjourn our meeting of September 16th at 7:28 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for coming down tonight.